Shabbat, Shalom, Happy Sabbath. This morning, our subject is a portrait of Yah's Kavod, a portrait of Yah's glory. And as such, I want you to turn with me to the book of Tehillim. That's the book of Psalm. And we're going to look at the 19th portion of it. And King David here writes to us, and he says, to the chief singer, a psalm of David. The Shemaim are proclaiming the esteem of Yahweh. And the expanse, that's the firmament, is declaring the work of his hand. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, and there are no words. Their voice is not heard. Their line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he put up a tent for the sun. This is a word of Yah. David here writes, and he wants you to know that Yah's voice to us is the language of divine resonance. That's what David wants you to know. There is no place in the earth or above the earth where his voice is not heard. And so you get this picture, you get this portrait of Yah's divine presence that is inherent in all of the creation. That's what David wants you to know. David is saying that the language of divine resonance speaks to that inescapable voice. It speaks eloquently. It communicates to the cogency of the authority and the permanency of Yahweh, the eminency of his omnipotent prevalency is the testament of his existence, without which there would be no relevance. There would be no reason for us to be here if Yah did not exist. So David's saying his voice is that divine resonance that everybody can hear, and they can see those luminaries, the star, the sun, the moon. They declare his glory. Even if you cannot read, even if you are unlettered, even if you are a yokel, a country bumpkin, you can see them. And they declare his glory. So every dimension of creation is a manifestation of Yah's glory, the object of our eternal subject. Yah's invisible attributes, without dispute, speak through the intelligence of nature, where it is made evident that our tenement, because we live here in tenement yard, it's not our home, we live in the tenement, it is a settlement without the impediment made intelligent by the covenant that Yah has with us. And so David wants us to know. He wants us to know that. But whether in politics, religion, academics, business, sciences, whatever it is almost inevitable that opposing forces will collide at some point. However, the way you quell a conflict with such forces is not necessarily by way of collision. That's not how you do it. Try and outthink your opponent. That's how you defeat your opponent, by way of outthinking him. You see, think then of the game of a chess. Think of a chess game. And when the player realizes that his opponent wants to checkmate his king, think of that. Because you almost get the impression in the society that we live that it is a game of chess. And everybody wants to checkmate the other person. So, indeed, it is illegal to leave one's king in check. So the player must always make a move to remove the king from check. You must always do that in chess. You can't leave your king in check. So the chess player must think, which is something that most people have stopped doing. They've outsourced their thinking to other people. And therefore, who is your opponent, may you ask? Who is your opponent? And who is it who is trying to checkmate your king? I will answer. You see, often the enemy is not necessarily a physical person, but the thoughts you conceive and the beliefs that frame your perspective on life, the limitation you place on your own mind, on your own thinking, becomes your enemy. We need to understand that. And so the enemy is determined by your willingness, your alacrity to make yourself subordinate, a kind of auxiliary person to the other person's thinking that he or she is better than you. And we want to abandon that kind of thinking. Yes, says, come, let's reason together. But so often in the society, you see people drooling over the drivel. We need to stop doing that, because the word calls us to study. And therefore, I believe that voice that people are listening to, even more than the word, is the voice of science. The voice of science. And science has been trying to checkmate our King Yeshua for a long, long time. You remember the Renaissance, when the Bibles were burned in the streets, and the men started to rely upon their own thinking, their own reasoning, and thinking. They call it the time of the Enlightenment. That's what they call it. But we need to understand that the enemy's strength is directly proportional to your perception of him. The way you perceive him, you give him strength. But young David understood this. David understood it as he spoke to the uncircumcised giant called Goliath. Israel was indeed intimidated, much afraid of this giant because of his size. But you see, an informed intellect is a priceless asset within the vault of understanding. Need to understand that. So David heard this voice of Goliath, denigrating, insulting the people of Israel and the king, trying to checkmate the king of Israel, the king of heaven. David heard it. And all he was doing, he was just transporting lunch for his brothers. And when he heard it, then said David to the Philistine, "Thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield. But I come to thee in the name of Yahweh of hosts, and the Yah of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied." That's what he wrote in 1 Samuel 17 and verse 45. You come to me with a spear. You see, we're talking to the enemy this morning. Science, you come to us with theories. You come to us with textbooks. You come to us with professors. But we come to you with the word of Yah. That's how we come this morning. To tame the enemy of science. That language of divine resonance. Because they have long since told us all kinds of things. The word says, in the beginning, Yah made the heavens and the earth, and all that is in the earth and the heaven, he made it, formed it with his own hands, having spoken his intent. We understood that. And so this morning we want to come to the enemy, whether it be science or our own thinking, with the word of Yah. That's how we're going to do it this morning. So let's look at the book of beginnings. The word says, in the beginning, Elohim created the Shemahim and the earth came to be formless and empty, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Ruach of Elohim was moving on the face of the waters. I just want you to know that I'm reading from the Hallelujah scriptures. The wording might be somewhat different in yours, but the principle and the context remains the same. Yah's word is very stubbornly true, whatever Bible you're reading from. So we don't have to conjecture here that Yeshua made the heavens and the earth. But science would want to have us believe that there was a big bang and man evolved. And professors and others, they drool over the drivel. That's what they do. They tell us that the earth that we live on, it revolves around the sun. And it is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. And I'm wondering, it's perhaps indicative of the fact that why so many people today are giddy at the same time, because they're spinning day and night at 1,000 miles an hour. They tell us that the sun is 93 million miles away from us. They tell us that. They tell us that this world is a globe. They tell us that. Heliocentric, they call it. They tell us that. They tell us that the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon, and the moon doesn't have its own light. They tell us that. They tell us that. And they teach you that very early, so it becomes commonplace in your thinking. They tell us that. They tell us that the moon doesn't have its own light. It borrows light. It takes light from the sun. All that they push on you. And we drool at the drivel. We do. We make ourselves subsidiary thinkers to them, auxiliary to the process of learning, and we consider it educational. We do. But we come this morning in the name of Yahweh. That's how we come. We come because the word teaches that it's not so. The word teaches that Yah made the sun and the moon on the fourth day. That's what the word says. He made them on the fourth day. Come with me to Bereshit, that's the book of beginnings, and we will look at verse 16, chapter 1. It says, and Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night and the stars. So Yah said, I made two great lights. They tell us that the moon doesn't have any light of its own. That's what science said. That's the enemy trying to checkmate our king. And we are to move the king out of that and put the king into a safe square. That's what we're doing this morning. Because it's a game of chess. Are you with me? That's what they're doing. And so Yah makes it clear that he made two great lights. And so the moon doesn't have to borrow any light from anywhere else. He said that. And moreover, if the earth revolves around the sun, as they teach it, the question must be raised, what was the earth revolving around before the fourth day? Day 1, day 2, and day 3. What was it revolving around? Moreover, you see, we're moving our king and putting him in a safe place because they really want to checkmate us. But we're not coming with spares. We're not coming with their textbook. We're not coming with Copernicus theories. We're not doing that. We're coming with the word of Yah. We're coming with the architect, the great designer who built this thing. So Yah made the sun and the moon on the fourth day. Remember now, Yah tells us in Genesis that the day starts in the evening. That's what he says. The day starts in the evening. So if the day starts in the evening, it would mean on day 3 at sunset, the moon would have been shining, but not the sun yet. So where did the moon get the light from at the beginning of day 4 in the night? Where did it get it from? Science? They can't answer the question that they pose through their theory. Yes and no, I created light. Oh, yes. And so, as we go through the word, we're seeing that it's not so much that the earth is a globe. If the earth is a globe, then it would have curvature. It would have curvature. But the earth is a circle. And remember now, a circle is not spherical. The word says, he is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, but a circle is not a globe. It's not spherical. It's a plane. We need to understand that. If ever you have seen a saucer is not a globe. It's a plane. We need to understand that. And listen to the Apostle Peter. He said, for they willingly are ignorant of that by the word of Yah the heavens were of old, and the earth standing, not spinning, standing out of the water and in the water. Yah said, I put that firmament or that dome over the earth, and I put the stars and the moon and the sun under it. And so what we're getting here is that there is water below. We know that because we live here, the oceans. But Yah wants you to know also there is water above the firmament, above it. So the firmament is what separates the two portions of water. We've got to understand that. And so if we ought to stop thinking and allow them to checkmate our king, what would our king say to us? What would he say to us? We can't allow that to happen. We can't. We can't do that at all. You see, in the hurt that the scriptures here seem to present to us, it's a plane. Some call it flat. That model of cosmos tells us that the North Pole is the immovable center of the world. They said it's the sun. And the entire universe. So Polaris, the North Star, it sits straight over the North Pole of the highest point in the heaven, and like slowly rotating planetarium dome, all the celestial bodies, as I indicated earlier, revolved around Polaris and over the earth once per day. We've got to understand that. That's how the Bible presents that. They teach us that there is a North Pole and there is a South Pole. So we repeat that parrot fashion. No. We need to understand something else. If you travel to the North Pole, that's the center of the earth. If you go north of north, you end up in south. So after you go over the North Pole, you are now in the circumference of the south. So you have one pole, not two. One pole. According to the way the scriptures here present the world. That's how we need to understand it. So the sun circles, we've read that this morning in the book of Hanok. The sun circles over and around the circumference of the earth every 24 hours, steadily traveling each day from the equator during the March vernal equinox up to Tropic of Cancer, to the June summer solstice, back down to the equator for the September autumnal equinox, and all the way down to the Tropic of Capricorn on December winter solstice. That's where we are now. Enoch tells us that. But you know what they've done? They tell you not to read Enoch because Enoch is an apocryphal book. Isn't that what they tell you? But let's answer them, because we will not allow them to checkmate our king. So come with me to the book we call Jude. Jude? Let's go to Jude and hear what Jude has to say. Jude says that Enoch, who? Enoch is what? He talks here about, well, let's call him by his right name. His name is Yehuda, by the way. You know, there was no J, so we're not going to call him Jude. His name is Yehuda. And I want to read from about verse 14. Come with me there. And Enoch, the seventh from Adam, also Nabu, he prophesies of these, saying, see, Yahweh comes with his myriads of Kodashim. He comes with his angels to execute judgment of all. Did you hear that? He's not coming to judge anyone, but to execute the judgment that has already been passed. To punish all who are wicked among them concerning all the wicked works which they have committed in wicked ways. What's my point here? Very simple. Very simple. The point that I'm making is that here is Jude, Yehuda. This is in the canon that they gave you with 606 books. And he is quoting repeatedly from the book of First Enoch, which means that the disciples, the apostles, they consider it scriptures. They consider it to be good reading because he's quoting from it and they're telling you not to read it. They come with their theories and their perspectives. We come with the word of Yah. That's how we disarm the enemy. That's how we do it. And so we need to understand that how it is. Come with me to also chapter 72. Let's go back to the book of Enoch, chapter 72 of the same passage, and see if we can enlighten your thinking and perhaps wake you up from your denominational slumber. And I'm going to be reading here from about verse 34 of chapter 72 of Enoch. Notice I keep saying Enoch rather than Enoch because it's spelled with an H. So it comes that its course becomes daily longer and its course nightly shorter. It's talking about the sun. Now, Enoch wants you to know that irrespective of what they tell you, the sun is not the distance that they say it is from you. He said, and this is the law and the course of the sun, and its return as often as he returned 60 times and rises, the great light which is named the sun forever and ever. And that which rises is the great light, and is so named according to its appearance, according as Yahweh commanded. As he rises, so he goes down and does not deceive. The sun never sets. That's what the prophet Enoch wants you to know. Enoch, the seventh generation from Adam. It doesn't cease and does not rest, but runs day and night, and its light is sevenfold brighter than that of the moon. Doesn't tell you that the moon borrows anything from the sun. Listen to me. But regards the size. What did they tell you about the size? Science says the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon. They also tell us that the moon is 400 times away in distance, but they appear to be the same size because that distance. Let's hear what Enoch has to say. Enoch says, let's read it again for emphasis, because we want to wake you up. Let the light of the sun, and I mean S-O-N, you can spell it anyway, shine. I'm reading from Enoch, chapter 72, and I'm reading verse 37. As he rises, that's the sun, so he goes down and does not cease, and does not rest, but runs day and night. And its light is sevenfold brighter than that of the moon. But as regards the size, remember what they told you? They are both equal. They're the same dimension. The sun and the moon, Enoch says, they are the same dimension. But they just wanted to checkmate our king. We ought not to rest and let that happen. We ought not to do that. And so, should we really keep quiet? Should we be tolerant? I don't think we can, because if we should be tolerant, what would Joshua say to us? You better come with me to the book of Yahushua. They call it Joshua, but we are respectful and we call him by his right name. And we're going to dilate a little on chapter 10. And Joshua is in battle here, and he's fighting. And we are told that Joshua is running out of time. Let's start at verse 12. It says, Yahushua spoke to Yahweh in the day when Yahweh gave the Amorites over to the children of Yisrael, and he said before the eyes of Israel, sun, stand still over Gibeon. Stand still. And moon, in the valley of Aelon. So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped, till the nation avenged itself upon the enemies. Is this not written in the book of Yesha? That's another book they took out of your Bible. Joshua says, the same thing here, Yahusha, is written in the book of Yesha, and you can read that in Yesha chapter 88 and verse 63. The same thing. But they took this out because the Bible said you need 2 or 3 witnesses. But they took one of the witnesses out. But in my Bible, the witness is back in here. Now let me ask you a question, because you've read that. They told us in school, in college, they're not letting up, and they do so in universities. They said the earth revolves around the sun. Now, shall I not introduce you to Joshua? This is, for years, had been the understudy to Moshe, the great lawgiver. And when Moses died, Yah said, I'm going to do to you exactly what I did to Moses. I'm going to give you the same authority. In fact, take off your shoes, Joshua, just like Moses took off his shoes. And I'm going to make you respectful in front of my people. So we're not talking about a Johnny just come person here. We're talking about a man who is endowed with the Ruach. So Joshua really doesn't need any introduction. But if you think he does, consider him now introduced to you. Logic suggests to me, and perhaps to you, that if the earth is revolving around the sun, as science tells us, why did Joshua say, sun stands still? Moon stand still? Because Joshua knew, at least it has to be concluded that way, that the earth doesn't move. It is immovable. That's how it is. Joshua wants you to know that. It doesn't move. But they tell you that it moves. And you have, for several years, been ferrying the idea that it moves. Come with me to 1 Chronicles, chapter 16 and verse 30. The word says, fear before him all the earth, the world also shall be stable, that it be not moved. The earth doesn't move. He has fixed the earth firm, immovable. That's what 1 Chronicles 16 and verse 30 wants you to know. And if you're not convinced, then come with me to Psalm 93 and verse 1. Thou hast fixed the earth immovable and firm. If you are still scratching your head in disbelief, come with me to Psalm 96 and verse 10. He has fixed the earth firm, immovable. All right. This one has brought out as icing on your cake. Psalm 104 verse 5. It says, thou didst fix the earth on its foundation so that it never can be shaken. Never can be shaken. You know, most of us, if not all of us, we have seen a rainbow. We've seen a rainbow. And a rainbow gives us a pictorial perspective on life. It's perhaps the greatest evidence of a earth that is plain, flat. Why do I say that? Because it reflects the shape of the dome. It reflects that. While men are trying to deceive you, Yahweh placed it in the sky so you can see it. And every time you see a rainbow, you see a arc reflecting that position, that profile of the firmament that comes down onto the earth, and everything is in it. Yah says, I've placed this rainbow here. Why? This is the everlasting covenant. When you read Isaiah chapter 24, it says they have broken the everlasting covenant because they're using the rainbow now for something else. They've broken it. And I'm going to destroy them. You didn't hear me, Let me try again. Yah says, this covenant that he made with man and the plants, the animals, it's an everlasting covenant. And we have seen in areas where people have used this rainbow to depict other things. He said, I'm going to burn the place down. Not my words. Go back and read Isaiah chapter 24. He said only few men are going to be left. I'm going to burn it. The place will be desolate because my covenant here has been misused. And so when I look on the TV and I see fire blazing in certain places, I ask myself all kinds of questions. I whisper to myself because perhaps nobody else wants to hear my whispers. But Yahweh has made it clear that this is his everlasting covenant. So, whenever we travel, whether by land or sea, and all of us have traveled to some place, and from whatever parts of the world in the direction towards the North Pole, we arrive at the same point. Therein, we are made convinced, and I mean convicted by the evidence, that what is commonly called the polar star region is really the center of the earth. It's the center of the earth. So from this center, the land diverges and stretches out of necessity towards the circumference we call the southern region. They call it the South Pole. No South Pole, one pole. That's a circumference. Are you with me? So the north is the pole and the south is the circumference. Now, let me explain. Let me explain, because you must now feel there is a need to follow what Yah is saying, and you can come with me to the book of Iyob or Job, and let's look at chapter 38. Chapter 38. You know the story very well that Job is made incapacitated by illness, which destroyed him almost, took away his wealth, his family, and left him what appears to be in a human form of disrepair. The Bible says, and I better introduce Job to you because you may think that is not a graduate. Job 1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared Elohim and eschewed evil. He walked away from evil. That's him. He's the best in the East. He's an intellectual. He's righteous. He's a Zaddik. So Yah is going to ask Job some questions, but the questions, they're not just for Job. They are for the professors, the emeritus professors in college and universities. But he's using Job as a conduit through which to ask those questions. That's what he's doing. So he says to Job, Job, where are you? Where were you when I established this thing? When I designed it? When I drafted up this dimension, the elevation of it, the first angle, second angle, and third angle projection? Where were you, Job? Job, I don't hear you talking, Job. Where was thou when I laid the foundation of the earth, declare, if thou hast understanding, Job? Remember, this is the best man in the East. This was your Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge graduate. He has multiple degrees in righteousness. Who hath laid the measures thereof? If thou knowest, Job, or who had stretched the line thereof. Did you hear that? Stretched. It's a covering, a firmament, a dome. He stretched it over the earth. That's what he's trying to tell us. Job, where were you? When the morning stars sang, these are the sons of God. They sang. The sons of Yah. Are you with me? He said they sang, and Elohim shouted for joy. The sons of Elohim shouted for joy. Or who shut up the sea? Did you hear me? Listen to me carefully. Who shut up the sea with doors when it brake forth as if it had issued out of the womb? Who did that? Job, I want you to know, you see the sea, the ocean? I told the ocean, don't go any further. I want you to stay with me. Despite what they teach you, nobody can teach you like the Ruach. Because the word says when he comes, he will teach you how many truths? All truth. And I told the sea not to go anywhere. When I made the cloud, the garment thereof, and thick darkness, swaddling band for it, and break up, for it is my decreed place to set bars and doors. Did you hear that? I told the sea, don't go any further. And the ocean heard his voice. What did I say our subject was? David says, the heavens declare the Kavod, the glory of Yah, and the firmament, not only the firmament, the ocean hears his voice. The ocean hears Yah's voice because it is the language of resonance, divine resonance. Hears. So I needed to give you that so you can understand this. So that which they tell you is Antarctica, a continent somewhere, is really a 360 degrees circumference around the earth. Blocks of ice 100 feet, 200 feet thick that nobody can circumnavigate. Nobody can circumnavigate it. They cannot get beyond that. Yah said, I put it there to, these are the gates for the ocean. It cannot go any further. Job, when I did this, where were you? Where were you? Where were you? Where were you when I did that? They tell you all kind of telltales. But we come in the name of Yahweh. That's how we come. Listen to what Yah says. I'm reading now from Jeremiah, because we're searching the word, are we not? And I'm reading from chapter 31. And I'm going to let you read with me verse 37. Thus said Yahweh, if heaven above can be measured, they said they've measured the earth and they know the diameter and the circumference and the radius of the earth. Yah said, if that can be measured and the foundation of the earth searched out beneath, I will also cast off all the seed of Israel for all that they have done, said Yahweh. It can't be measured. So how did they measure it? Tell me. Because they cannot get beyond where the firmament comes down on the earth, because it's ice. It's ice. So come with me now. Again, let's go back to that book that we're getting to like. Did I say like? I mean love. Hanok. Come with me to chapter 18. Chapter 18. Because, as you know, Enoch was taken. And some say he went to heaven. But Genesis tells us all the days of Enoch was 365 years. We're not going to deal with that this morning, but we could. But I just want to throw that out for delinquent years so that they can penetrate that 365 years, all the days of Enoch. The word says Enoch was taken to heavens, and he was on a grand tour to be shown things. I saw the treasures of all the winds. I saw how he had furnished us with them, the whole creation and the firm foundations of the earth. He says, I saw that. Now, if a man is taken on a tour by Yah and shown this, and a scientist who claimed to have measured the earth have not seen it, who would you believe? All right. Verse 2. And I saw the cornerstone of the earth. I saw the four winds which bear the earth and the firmament and the Shemayim. He said, I saw that. And I saw how the winds stretch out the vaults of the Shemayim. You know, the vaults. And have their station between the Shemayim and the earth. These are the pillars of the Shemayim. I saw the wind of the Shemayim, which turn and bring the what? The circumference of the sun. What did I say earlier? The circumference of the sun and all the stars to their going down. I saw the winds on the earth carrying the clouds. I saw the path of the messenger. I saw the end of the earth He's what? He saw the end of the earth. I'll tell you what he means in a minute. The firmament and the Shemaim above. And I proceeded and saw a place which burns day and night. Did you get me? It burns day and night, where there are 7 mountains, magnificent stones, 3 towards the east, 3 towards the south. You better understand what's happening here. As I read this, more and more, I'm convinced that what Enoch wants us to know, without putting it on a plate, is that he is here in Antarctica. Enoch gives the impression distinctively that he's been to Antarctica. And you see why I conclude that. Come with me. Stay with me. Stay with me. As I proceeded, I'm in verse 6, and saw a place which burns day and night, where there are 7 mountains. In Antarctica, there are 7 mountains. 7. Of magnificent stones, and 3 towards the east and towards the south. And as for those towards the east, one was of a colored stone, and one was pearl, and one of jacinth, and those towards the south, red stone. But the middle one reached to the Shemaim like the throne. That's the highest one. That's the highest mountain there. And he says, but the middle one reached to the Shemaim like the throne of Elohim, of alabaster, and the summit of the throne was of sapphire. Did you hear that? Alabaster? Now, your mind should have, if it hasn't, understand why Miriam, that woman, took the ointment out of the alabaster jar. Did you get that? And anoint Yeshua. It is not without significance. But let's continue. Let's continue. And I saw a flaming fire. And beyond these mountains is a region, the end of the great earth. Did you hear that? So he's seeing the earth. He said, I saw the end of the earth. There the Shemaim were completed. And I saw a deep abyss. You better understand where I'm going, because in Revelation chapter 20, this is where the devil goes. He's bounded and brought to this abyss. Where is he going? Let me answer you. Antarctica. All right. With columns of fire of the Shemaim, and among them I saw columns of fire fall, which were beyond the measure, alike towards the height of and towards the depth, and beyond the abyss, I saw a place which had no firmament. Wow. Of the Shemaim above, and no firmly founded earth beneath it. Did you get that? There was no water upon it. Did you get that? They said the south region there is the coldest place on earth, and also the driest. Antarctica. No birds, but it was waste, a desert there, and horrible place. I saw there 7 stars, like great burning mountains. I said they have 7. And to me, when I inquired regarding them, listen to me, the messenger said, this place is the end of the Shemaim and earth. He's saying, this is where the firmament, the canopy, the dome comes down over the earth. where the ice, thick ice, goes around the earth that nobody can circumnavigate. Enoch says, I saw it. Listen to me. The messenger said, this place is the end of the Shemahim and the earth. This has become a prison for the stars, the host of the Shemahim. Stay with me. Stay with me. And the stars which roll over the fire are they which have transgressed the commandment of Yahweh in the beginning of their rising, because they did not come forth at their appointed time. And he was wroth with them and bound them till the time when their guilt should be completely ended for 10,000 years. These angels, fallen angels, those who mated with the women in Genesis chapter 6, they were put in prison. Isn't that what the word said? They were put in prison. Prison. So you better understand now what Peter is saying, that when Yeshua, in chapter 1 Peter 3, he's saying when Yeshua rose from the dead, he went to prison to preach to the spirits. Yeshua went to Antarctica to preach to those prisons. Isn't that what he's saying? That's what the word here is letting us know. Let me read a few more verses in chapter 19 of Hanok. And the word said, and Uriel said to me, here shall stand the messengers who have connected themselves with women. Did you get me? Chapter 6 of Genesis. Bereshit. That's where I'm referring you to, but I'm reading chapter 19 of Hanok. Let's read it again. And Uriel said to me, Uriel, the angel, is speaking to Hanok, who is a seventh generation from Adam, and says, here, in this place here, that has all the making to be Antarctica, he's saying, here shall stand the messenger who have connected themselves with women, and their spirits, assuming many different forms, are defiling mankind, and shall lead them astray into sacrificing to demons as mighty ones till the day of the great judgment, in which they shall be rightly ruled till they are made of end of. These spirits, they're ruling mankind. That's what the word is letting you know. Don't be fooled. So when they tell you about Copernicum, heliocentrism, and that the world is spinning, the only thing that is giddy is your head to believe them. Oh, yes. Now, it is amazing that we have allowed ourselves to be tricked like this. So they tell us that an eclipse of the sun is caused by the moon passing before it and between it and the one observing from the earth, that's you and I. That's how we see it. And it's a celestial phenomenon. Yeah? Okay, it's believable. However, What about the eclipse of the moon, which is said to arise from the shadow of the earth? Did you get me? Remember, as we've studied this morning, we come to the conclusion that the earth has no motion. It doesn't move, either upon axis or in orbit around the sun. Therefore, it could not come between the sun and the moon. The earth is a plane positioned beneath the sun and the moon. Therein, to suggest that the earth is intercepting object which stops the light of the sun casting a shadow upon the moon, you speak to the realm of impossibility, teaching the doctrines of the commandments of men, says Matthew 15 and verse 9. History has shown us that there are cases when the sun and the moon are on record, the sun and eclipse moon being on the horizon together. Are you with me? The full moon has also been seen on the horizon before the sun set on the 19th of July, 1750, and the 20th of July, 1837. So if the two of them are seen at the same time, how is it one is blocking the other and the earth came between them? Well, the sun is 93 million miles? Is that what they said? And it's that big. Isn't that what they're saying? It's that big. Yeah, I said they can't measure it. They cannot measure it. They can't. And so we see that the enemy is none other than the way we think. So the sun and the moon illuminates, revolve around the earth once every 24 hours, illuminating like spotlights the areas of which they pass. So the sun's annual journey from tropic to tropic, southeast to southeast, is what determines the length and the character of the day and the night and season. This is why equatorial regions experience almost year-round summer and heat, while higher latitudes, north, especially south, experience more distinct seasons with harsh winter. The earth, my brothers and sisters, those of you listening, is stretched out, says the word of Yah, which diverges from the central north in all directions towards the south, the equator being midway between the north center and the southern circumference, divides the course of the sun into north and the south declination. This longest circle round the world, which is the sun made, is when it has reached its greatest southern declination. Nothing else. That's what we ought to know. But listen to this paleontologist, the late paleontologist, Stephen Jay Gould. Listen to him from Harvard. Listen to him. He says, we're here because one hot group of fishes had a peculiar fin anatomy that could transform into legs for terrestrial creatures, because the earth never froze entirely during an ice age, because a small, tenuous species arising in Africa 250,000 years ago had managed so far to survive by hook and by crook. We may yearn for higher answer, but there none exist. He said we came from fish. And what is risable? And I mean really laughable. People put their clothes on in the evening to take their family out, and they go to the restaurant to order their ancestors a plate of fish while they're cannibal eating their ancestors. This man says we come from fish. And so, in the debate between heliocentricity and geocentricity, which is really saying the earth is flat, and versus the earth is a ball, is a globe. The conclusion here in the word of Yah is quite simple. Quite simple. It is very simple because they say a solar eclipse occurs when the moon passes between the earth and between the moon and the sun. But every time I see the people with their binoculars looking at the eclipse, they're always looking up. They're telling us the earth intervenes by coming between two. So the earth must be in the middle, isn't it? That's not what we see. That's not what we read. That's not what we should believe. That's not what we should believe. And so it is quite evident that they have given us a 6 and want us to believe it's a 9. It's quite obvious. And so we must rely upon Yah's word. We, having looked today through the orbital mechanics, Yah has shown us quite clearly that despite of what they're teaching us, we must stay focused to his word. The earth is passive. It doesn't move. 1,000 miles? No. Yah said, I made this. And he took Enoch and showed him all of this and sent Enoch back to teach us, well, we have heard you, Father. And thank you for letting us know. Thank you. In Yeshua's name, we thank you for this word, this language of divine resonance that comes into our hearing. We receive it. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen.